The latest example of pre-industrial pollution comes from Peru almost half a millennium ago. To get a read on what humans have been ejecting into the air, researchers pulled ice cores from Kcaa, a glacier high in the Andes. The samples provide an annual archive of elements that have been circulating in the atmosphere, stretching back to the year 793. Analyzing the core, the researchers found that prior to about 1532, the ice harbored only a sprinkling of dust and ash, remnants of the occasional volcanic eruption. But at about the 1540 mark, corresponding with the start of colonial mining and metallurgy, the cores suddenly contained chromium, molybdenum, antimony, and lead. The finding is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Of course, these waste products are a proverbial drop in the bucket compared to the toxins we put out today, because we've developed ways to pollute that people back then could only have dreamed of. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
Controlled? Well, maybe. Chaos? Definitely. Tune in weekday mornings, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. for Controlled Chaos with Gary Garver, Jigga, Dave, and Mary Tonga. KCAA, 1050 a.m. You have to hear it to believe it.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-643-6931 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-643-6931 to take your call now. Call 1-800-643-6931. That's 1-800-643-6931. Again, 1-800-643-6931.
For more local radio every day, tune in to KCAA Loma Linda.
Oh yeah, Peter Piper picked the peckle, Pipper's peck. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen on the case for truth and justice with the right information to help improve the situation. We know we go through that Peter Piper thing to kind of exercise our lips, but you saw what happened there. So it's without exercise that I come to you with full emotion and passion to tell you the truth about everything that I bring up as a subject. Number one truth. The Mood Master is kicking. He has found a new position in the studio that gives him more access to a clear. Can you hear him? Oh yeah. While we're listening to the Mood Master, I want to remind everybody that Empire Talks Back is brought to you by West Side Story Newspaper, the Improve Association, and Medi-Cal. I didn't give them their credit last week, but Medi-Cal is a good sponsor and supporter of Empire Talks Back, and we hope that you will continue to be a good listener. As we talk to you today, we're going to talk about a couple of things. One of them that I have been avoiding for a period of time, and that's the Bill Cosby debacle. But we're going to talk about it today. It appears that, I can't defend him. I love the imagery that the Huxtables brought to us. Bill's been a fairly good comedian. I liked I Spy, not so much because of his great acting, but because it was an opportunity, one of the first opportunities to show an integrated partnership, despite the fact that America, is the home of freedom and democracy and blah, 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 blah. The Cosby Show was one of the first shows that gave an African American an opportunity to not bow, scrape, and run around serving food to everybody. So I appreciated Bill for that. I appreciated the producers for putting it together. I have no defense for Bill. I do have some concerns, not so much about did he do it, or the era that he was functioning in, the 70s, Man, that if we go back and look at the culture of the times, this guy was hanging out at the Playboy Club, and everybody that thought they were a Playboy was not a player. They didn't all look like somebody that you wanted to wake up next to. They certainly didn't have all of the great attributes that the imaginary Playboy had, and the ability to soothe and smooth and seduce every young woman that they thought they wanted to seduce. So they resorted to the time-old sexist thing that men have done for years. Well, not quite as bad, because we go back to the caveman. He grabbed him by the hair and took him anywhere he wanted to and did what he felt like. And we go through, come through the so-called growth of the planet, of relationships, and we find that at the turn of the century, men were still extreme sexists and pretty much treated women the way they wanted to, and were subject only to their peers, being men, judging them on what they did. And probably little short gremlin looking guys felt like it was okay to alcohol and whatever else to get a woman's to become so dizzy that they agreed, or didn't even have to agree, that they were taken advantage of. We go back into that period of the 70s, alcohol, drugs, and all of that stuff was almost recommended. And I don't feel sorry for Bill. I just feel sorry that women have had to go through so much to get to where they are and still be objects of sexual abuse and misuse. I understand that in our military, 20% of the women who are in the military at some point get raped. That's a terrible statement. That's a terrible fact. That's a terrible circumstance, and we find that there are women who are still wanting to demonstrate their loyalty, their ability to come out and be as strong as anyone else in terms of securing and helping to represent the security of this country in the military. And still, despite the fact that we have women generals, women in charge of ships, 20% of them in the military are raped. I don't know if that includes this date rape or if it's hardcore physical violent rape, but either way, it's not what we are or should be proud of. So I would suggest that if there was any direction that Mr. Cosby could have gone, it would have been to, not go in the direction of President Nixon, denying the truth is probably worse than the initial offense. To try the cover-up definitely tends to bring many more minds out of the wall, out of the position of on the edge, or sitting in the middle trying to figure out what to do. I don't know if you or me or any of us would have felt better if Mr. Cosby had said, I did those things, or as he did them, there were some people that objected, and he paid some of them off quietly. Some of them obviously went to court. That's why we're in the circumstance we're in terms of knowing that Mr. Cosby sat in front of a judge, told the judge what he was doing, that he thought Quaaludes were, some type of seduction tool. He certainly did admit that he was getting them with the intent of giving them to women so that he could have extramarital sex. How he explains that to his wife is another thing, but how he could explain it to society, I think in a way that we could have not accepted it and embraced it, but certainly understood it and maybe applaud him for his response and reaction. He's got enough money to make a lot of people feel better about themselves as a result of having made them feel bad about themselves through this date rape technique. But I think we as a society are fairly forgiving for those folks who do not attempt to hide the truth or to cover up, indeed, the exploitation that they participated in. So if Mr. Cosby had said, well, I was a I was a victim of my culture, and as a victim, I made other people even more of a victim. I was under the impression that, women were objects and that, we could do whatever was necessary to trick them because, they were, and on and on and on. And so you could maybe take the story, get listening to it and say, Bill, I'm not, But then he'd say, but I'm sorry. I've not done that in a period of time. If the last time he did it was in the 70s, I'm not accepting it, but I'm looking at, that was a bad period of time. He shouldn't lie about it. He's got enough money to make people feel better, as he obviously did with some people paying them off. But then as this conversation came up and he started denying again that it occurred, you now have women who are 20, 30 years older whose lives have been affected, and they didn't think they were, but they've been affected, and they want to feel better about themselves. I imagine there's one or two who felt like maybe they didn't get enough money, and I think maybe there's possibly somebody that made Bill feel like this was the thing to do because he was a high-profile actor. People thought that he could help them, and many of them came to him possibly with the idea of trading sex for an advantage. So I'm not a superstar. I'm not a rock star. I have no idea how they're treated. I did spend a few moments in time next to a few rock stars, one of them being Jimi Hendrix, and I'll tell you, standing next to him did not make it any easier to believe women are being misused, because that guy, man, they were run me over and run everybody else over to get to Jimmy. Bill Cosby is no Jimi Hendrix, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I am not accepting what he did. I am, for the first time on this program, discussing Bill Cosby, his plight, and the terrible effects that it has had on the women involved, and certainly now the people who have believed that the Huxtable was not the Huxtable, but was indeed the Cosby, and that they were interchangeable, and that we should have felt the same way about one as the other. Well, now we cannot do that. And as a matter of fact, it's hard to look at it's hard to see a Huxtable on TV now because the stations have taken him off. But prior to that, as we were listening to the charges against Bill during the time that the Huxtables were still available almost 24/7 on some channels, it made it hard to watch him. It made it hard to look at the Huxtable guy and not wonder, was he deviously involved or misusing people on the show. So folks, we see that these things do go full circle. It's very hard to be a highly visible person only when you want to be seen. Once you're a high visible rock star, brother, they follow you home. They follow you to every place that you go. I would not be surprised soon to find some bathroom videos, because that's how nuts and crazy we tend to be with our curiosity about what other people are doing in their lives. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. We're here on the case for truth and justice with the right information to help improve the situation. Bill Cosby will not be our only topic of the day. I'm very concerned about still homelessness. I'm still concerned about how we treat our veterans. And I just, if we've got 20% of the women in the military getting raped, and when these women come home, what are they doing? Have they started their complaint line? Have we given them enough confidence so that they can turn their disappointment and pain into something that will become a bridge to better conduct as far as our military is concerned? Folks, that's something we need to worry about, talk about, and change. We'll be right back after this short message.
Chose a gun and threw away the sun.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story Newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
E-Digits. Lock 'em in for more information, recreation, and guaranteed fun. KCAA 1050 AM.
This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen, on the case for truth and justice with the right information to help improve the situation. Part of the right information for us folks as we look at our situation and circumstance has to be, how can we make a little bit more money? Anybody out there interested in figuring how to make a little more money? Well, I don't know. We're not going to ignore our past conversation, but I am wanting to bring to your attention that the African Global Economic Development Summit will be taking place in less than a month, August 6th through the 8th, in the city of Los Angeles at the University of Southern California campus. That event is being sponsored by the USC African American Alumni Association. We're talking about doing things to show people at this summit how easy, well, it's not easy, but how it can be made easier to do business with Africa. Well, why would people want to do business with Africa? To make some money. There are some people who have benevolent thoughts about Africa, wanting to do things to make Africa better and more secure than they are, and that's important. I think one of the things that we should all recognize as we look at and hear the news, we hear bad things happening all over Africa as we look at the general and majority press. And that is something that makes people say, well, I don't know if I want to go there. Well, if you look at the news and what takes place in New York and Philadelphia, Chicago, and Los Angeles, murder and mayhem takes place. But at the same time, we can go 2 blocks east or 4 blocks west and find a very totally civilized society where things are going quite well and people are making a lot of money and living on the, very high on the hog, if you know what I mean. Africa is the same way. The same type of income disparity that we see in the United States, we see in Africa. As a matter of fact, we see it all over the world, people. So the story about what's going on in a certain place is pretty much going to be based on the eye of the beholder and the storyteller. I can pretty much guarantee you from what I've read and what I've seen and how I've talked to people who've been around the world is that we run into this duality everywhere we go. We can go to Greece right now, a place where we know that this country is it's pretty much upside down. The economy is terrible. They are constantly needing a buyout or a stimulus from their neighbors. The concept of the euro and the European Union is something that they're concerned and worried about. But there are people in Greece who are doing quite well. The rich, they're not concerned about the new tax. They've been able to hide their money and not pay taxes. That sound familiar? Well, in the United States, you don't have to hide your money. You have the ability to find certain tax codes that can work for you. Well, and if you can't find them, you've got enough money, you certainly can find an accountant or a lawyer who can do that. What I'm telling you, folks, is that good and bad exist everywhere. Matter of fact, if it wasn't something good going on, you probably would not be able to recognize the bad. If you remember the stories that people tell us as they come out of poverty, that they remember not having some things, not because they didn't have them at the time, but they remember not having them because they find that other people did have them. Young kids, I don't care what the circumstance, if you go around and find children, they'll be laughing and playing. They are not bound by the memories of great things happening, causing them to be disappointed by the lack of things that are happening. So we can find that the human mind can pretty much adjust to anything. So the same time that you hear about Boko Haram in Nigeria, I want you to understand that there are people in the cities and other places of Nigeria that are doing quite well. So I would like for you to, as I am doing, think about what it is that you would like to do to make yourself a better situation in the world of economics. And as you look to trade or making your income stronger, what are you doing? How are you going about it? One of the things I suggest is that you come to the African Global Economic Development Summit and give yourself an opportunity to find out why so many people who are doing well in Africa are telling you, don't come to Africa, don't go to Africa because you may get some of the money that they're trying to get. I go back and time again, I'll remind you that when people see the Brinks truck throw money away, they very seldom get on the phone and try to call somebody and say, hey, Leonard, the Brinks truck just came through my neighborhood and dropped off a bunch of money in the middle of the street, and my neighbors are out there picking it up right now, but before I went out to pick any up, I thought I'd give you a call so that you could drive in from LA and try to get you some. Nah, that doesn't happen. And I say Leonard because you all, if you've been listening, you know that Leonard is not only an acquaintance, but he's a long-time friend of mine. And if I were going to share money with somebody, it would probably be him. But Leonard, if I saw the Brinks truck dropping money or mysteriously showing up the money on the middle of the freeway, brother, would you prefer that I stop and call you, or should I pick up as much as I could and still be with the idea that, if I get enough, I'm going to share it with Leonard?
However, I realize reality would prohibit that, because while you're on the phone calling me, everybody else would be stopping on the freeway. And by the time you finish the call, there would be very little money within reach. And you need to go for it first, and then it's like my dad said, get rich, then help everybody else out.
So those
Otherwise,
people,
just another poor blank fill in the space.
So the idea of people who are in Africa making money with the gold and the silver and the copper and the wonderful trees, the forest, the things that they're able to make money out of, but they're not inviting you. I mean, the Africans are, but I don't hear the Dutch or the French or the American government or the Chinese government, those people that are doing strong infrastructure projects, setting themselves up to cart the copper, the gold, and the silver out of the country to take advantage of all of the other minerals and natural resources that are there. They're not inviting you to come and share the money that they're making. But
it's like
the government and the people of Africa would love to have you come so that more competition will create a better circumstance, not just for the business people, but for the consumers. Not just the consumers in Africa, but the consumers who are getting those elements that are exported out of Africa. Folks, there's a secret, and you're not part of it. There is a party going on, and you hear the noise, but you're not getting an invitation, except from us at the African Global Economic Development Summit. We are inviting you to come learn how you can participate, learn from people who are involved in making business and money in Africa now, learn from people in Africa who are exporting things back to America. You could be the recipient of some of those things that need to be distributed. There are new ideas, new thinking people in Africa, just like there are all over the world. High tech, low tech, and no tech. All of those arenas are making money, and all you need to do is learn how to do it, and more importantly, meet some people that you can create a relationship with that will make it a lot easier for you to participate in the money pie that is being split up in the on the continent of Africa. 11, count them, 11 of the fastest growing economies on the planet are in Africa. Those are countries. Africa is not one big country. Africa is a continent with over 53 separate countries, all with many of them.
Wow, that sounds like North America with 50 separate states.
Well, that is a way to look at it, and there is a movement among many Africans to have a united Africa as a place where the borders have been melted in terms of facilitating trade. But remember, we have the full flow of religions in Africa. You name a religion, it's probably there. You name a governmental concept, and it's probably there. Getting along and getting to work with each other in Africa is a major move that is taking place. Remember, under colonialism, people were misplaced, borders were recreated for the sake not of the indigenous, but for the colonists, those who were...
Colonialism didn't allow you to make and sell things. You could only produce raw material and feed it to the mother country. You couldn't make any finished goods if you were a colony.
And that's often the case now. There are a few refineries, oil refineries, food refineries. There are some food processing places, but those are things that are in demand. Those are things that when you get an opportunity to speak to government officials, you will find that often they will provide free land. They will we do the same thing in our cities here. Economic Development Department will very often provide a large store. Well, let's look at Walmart. People are constantly arguing about a new Walmart coming in, and the cities are usually quite enthused about the tax money that would be available, so enthused about the tax money that they're willing to give it away for 10, 15 years, because there are also ancillary businesses that end up getting created and used and populated by,
the taxpayers participate in those businesses.
Yeah, so the governments in Africa do the same thing. They'll give you land. As a matter of fact, the organization that is putting on the Global Summit has several projects in Africa going, many of them. One of them has a circumstance where they're growing trees that will convert to energy, oil, and many other uses that there's, man, I can't even think of the land term. What is it, hectares? The one that, they've got some 6,000 hectares of property that people have pledged to them to grow these trees. So they're willing in Africa to participate with you if you are willing to do something simple, like do a little bit of exploratory, get some information. You spend money. Man, have you noticed how the gas prices went up? Wow, just to go to the store to spend some money is costing you twice as much now, or $1 more per gallon. So as you have to pay more just to live and consume, you certainly want to invest a little bit into your future that will allow you to increase your income potentially. So your child, your student, if you are a student, as a matter of fact, if you are a student at the University of Southern California, you definitely need to come to this African Global Economic Development Summit because of organizations that are at USC that will support you as you look into economic development, foreign trade, international trade, because they, as a school, definitely encourage entrepreneurism, because the richer their alumni become, the more gifting that they're able to give to the University of Southern California. And they are on a big fundraising circumstance now, and they're not talking about millions of dollars with the M. They're talking about billions of dollars with the B. So once again, if you have any affiliation with the University of Southern California, I understand, as it was said by someone they don't hold in high favor in public now, Mr. O.J. Simpson, would recruit people to play football, and he would say, you can go to UCLA and be a Bruin for 4 years, or you can come to USC and be a Trojan for life. So, the affiliation and relationships that you will be able to create, not just at USC, but with the African officials and business people who will be attending that summit, you don't want to miss that. And once again, the best place to find out more information would be to go to this is their website, and it's AGEDsummit.com. Aged African Global Economic Development, AGEDsummit.com. Folks, I recommend you do that highly, because I would love to have more listeners who are financially, what should I say, Leonard? Rich, wealthy, so you guys could send me some money. And, well, no, you're right. Wallace, you should go there yourself and create an economic stream for yourself. And you're right, I'm doing that. I hope to see you there. This is Empire Talks Back. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back, and we'll have an opportunity to continue our conversation.
For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Oh yeah, we're back. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. I hope you were able to use that break to figure out a way to make you some money. If you didn't, I'll remind you again, the African Global Economic Development Summit is a circumstance where your small investment, you make a small investment to register to that event. I think it's $200 for the entire 3 days, giving you an opportunity to listen to presentations where people will be talking about large infrastructure projects. They'll be talking about small, intricate dealings that you could get involved in. They will be there for you to explore for yourself the possibilities that are waiting for you to do business on the continent of Africa with one of the 11 fastest growing economies on the planet. And all of those nations will be represented. I cannot name them all for you, but I will attempt to bring a few of them up. Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, Ivory Coast. That's not bad. I got 6 of them. I'll do a little research and name some more. But those are countries that are working. They have made regulatory changes to make it easier for people to do business. They are reaching out. They're making deals based on, their ability and desire to partner with you. So if you have any interest in that, you definitely want to express that interest and come on out on the 6th through the 8th.
May I add one thing?
Absolutely. You could add 2.
Well,
but not 3.
You get involved, whether or not you get involved or want to create a business, just consider what you will learn by participating, by going and having a better understanding when you come out of what's going on with international trade. That's knowledge. And what they say about education, once you've got it, nobody could ever take it away from you.
That's right. That's right. we
So
spoke.
understanding is available from this experience as well as the business opportunity.
And anybody that does a little bit of thinking can take advantage of this. I understand that almost anywhere you go on the planet, as you travel, if you were to pack an extra 25, 30 pair of Levi's, you would be able to sell them at almost, well, what they tell me, double to 3 times the price that you pay for them here. That's not a bad way to pay for your trip. I understand that batteries are not available everywhere like they are here in the United States. So, there's, if you were to go and just look at what people are shipping, if you can't afford a container, but you want to go somewhere, you probably can figure out what is that you can put in your suitcase that when you get to where you're going, that suitcase has all of a sudden stopped being the liability that the airport considers and charges you extra for, but becomes an asset, something that you can use to make more money from that result. But as we talk about that, and we've looked at Leonard, before you got on, I talked about Bill Cosby, and we ended up speaking about the fact that our military does rape 20% of the women that are in there. We've discussed a little bit about how that affects our veterans potentially, and we're moving over to how fair is life in particular when we look at the fact that so much of our money is in the hands of so few people. Which we could possibly live with, but as we look at the inequities, one of the most obvious inequities is the fact that we've got people on the street without a place to live. Some of them, if you talk to them, they'll say, well, it's my fault. I should have done this better, and blah, blah. But the fact is, they're on the street. No place to live, no way to create an income. I saw a story yesterday about a guy who had become homeless, and things looked really bad for him, but he was reminded that he had a hobby of knitting, and his friends hooked him up with a computer and a phone line and bought him some needles and stuff to do some knitting with. And he started knitting bears, little bears, and he worked his way out of homelessness with those items that he was able to make by hand and sell. Certainly there are things like that we can encourage people to do, but I see a problem where homelessness really, well, certainly in a city like San Bernardino, where you've got boarded up homes, where you've got boarded up houses, you've got blighted houses, blighted circumstances where we just know that it's making the neighborhood worse. But then when I see empty houses, and I also see homeless people, I see the empty houses all blighted and boarded up and the grass growing wild and crazy, and I see homeless people, I think that, wow, there should be something that we could do to kind of pair those things up so that we could reduce the blight and the homelessness at the same time. I haven't figured it all the way out, but I've got some good ideas. And in that light, we have Mr. Adrian Dove on the line with us. Adrian is a former HUD official. He is the chairman of the California Core Organization, which is concerned about what happens to the quality of life for people. He is also the facilitator of the original affirmative action plan, the only one that worked the way it was supposed to. And, well, he's one of those people that's here to help you all realize that the best thing about me is that I keep some bright minds around me. Mr. Dove, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Very well, very well. You know, a lot of people say they're doing good and they don't really mean they're doing good. They mean that they personally are feeling well. But in your case, I know that you are doing good because you are a community activist, someone who is not satisfied to go to sleep at night having not done something for someone else. So you are probably one of the few people that has the right to say you are doing good. Mr. Duff, as we look at this homeless situation that I was just discussing and the blight circumstance, and the president yesterday made some statements about the need for affordable housing and that he was going to do some things to make that occur. What are your general thoughts about homelessness, affordable housing, and the public obligation?
You know, I really, having worked at HUD, and I watched the way that Section 8 worked, where it really was talking about, it was bragging about how much money was being spent on the poor and providing housing for them. But Section 8 is really a badly designed program in which it subsidizes the landlord. And the HUD economist says this is the market rate, is say $900 or $1,000 for this apartment, and you got 10,000 of them, and you want to collect that 1,000 for each one of them, and that the tenants from their job, low-paying job, or their welfare, they cannot afford. Well, if they pay 30% of their gross income, it will amount to about $250.
Mr.
So
Dove,
the difference between the $250 that the tenant is able to pay and the $900 or $1,000 that the HUD economist has declared is what the landlord should get. It should be market rate. The difference is made up by aid to the poor, housing aid. Thus, really, aid to the landlord to maintain the rental level, to continue collecting at a level where the true market wouldn't find anybody to fill that housing. And so,
let's discuss that for a moment. Adrian,
yeah.
Let's discuss that for a moment because, for the sophisticated economist, the idea of a subsidy going to the poor is the way it's described. And most of us agree, hear that and just keep on going and think that that's the way it goes. But what you just pointed out was that the recipient of the money is not the poor person who's living in the house. They don't get that money and then move it to pay their rent. That money goes totally around them and is paid directly to the rentor, the homeowner, the landlord. And so to consider that and to name that payment as a subsidy to the poor, and is that how it's named, Adrian?
That's what it's called, yeah.
Welfare. So as we look at the image of what's taking place, we end up saying, wow, the beneficiary of that is somebody who possibly doesn't deserve it because they can't afford it. They probably ain't doing no work. They're the poor, and we're helping the poor, when in fact we are.
That's right.
And we should be able to brag about helping the landlord. What's wrong with helping the landlord? Why do we want to cloak it into something that appears to be helping the poor?
Well, there's more to it than that. There's low interest direct loans from the government, and HUD programs to build the housing, to build new low-income housing wherever there's empty land, and then they give a deep subsidy 30-year loan, and sometimes they will just milk it for 30 years, and then the land value goes up, as in the case on Lexington and Crenshaw and LA. When the land value goes up, they dump all those poor people out. And they refinance the building because they've been collecting deep subsidy for 30 years. They must do it for 30 years. They must keep it low income for 30 years.
Now let's explore that again.
Kick those people out and build some luxury apartments. That's what's going on now.
It's amazing when you slow it down and watch what occurs. It's kind of like watching, I guess a boxing match in slow motion. You can actually see the punch. What we're saying here is that when the government says, I want some affordable housing, they don't really mean something that the public can afford. Actually, they're saying we will pay someone to build housing and the government will subsidize or pay for that housing not because you're poor, but because you're rich enough to build it and kind enough to allocate your building to poor people. That's
pretty much it.
That's
and so if we're doing that subsidy, I worked in the White House for about 10 years, and I was working in policy as an economist. And one of the things that I saw was, you can do a national policy and just look at all the departments. White House is probably the only place that you can look at all the departments with an overview. And it occurred to me that the money that's going so-called to facilitate the poor having housing through HUD, it really ought to be going to, if you're going to put it out there, switch it over to the Labor Department, which also works in programs.
That's a major step. Let's take a very short break, Mr. Dove. We're speaking with Adrian Dove, the chairman of the California Core Organization, and we have some conversation from him about affordable housing. We're talking about subsidies. Who is the recipient of the subsidy? And as we often talk about food stamps, we make it sound like, wow, these poor people are really ripping the government off getting these food stamps, when in fact, our grocery stores, if they were not getting that subsidy pat on the back, slide some money in their pocket, they probably wouldn't have the profit level. We're helping their profits? My goodness. This is Empire Talks Back. We'll be right back with a short break and be joined by Mr. Jamal Lilly, as well as Leonard Evans and Mr. Adrian Dove, the brilliant minds that hold Empire Talks Back together. We'll be right back.
Tax the rich, feed the poor, till there are no rich no more.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
Listen to KCAA Loma Linda for less confrontation and more information.
3, 2, 1, it's you and me, baby. Empire Talks Back on the case for truth and justice with the right information coming from some knowledgeable people. On the phones, we have Mr. Leonard Evans. This guy is working with an organization, raises $40,000, $50,000 a month. He must know what he's doing. And Mr. Adrian Dove, he is the chairman of the California Core, the facilitator of the original affirmative action that worked.
And my main thing now is president and CEO of the Kingdom Day Parade, the annual Martin Luther King Parade in LA.
Yeah, that's because it's the annual Kingdom Day Parade. A lot of people would think you're only working one day a year. That's why I'm giving you a little bit more responsibility and trying to bring you to work on Sundays a little more often so that people will know that I have to interrupt your action. That means you're doing something to get you here. So we do appreciate you very much. Adrian, you were giving us an idea of changing the responsibilities of affordable housing and taking it away from the HUD and moving it into the Department of Labor. Why would you do that, and what do you think the response or action would be?
And I don't recall now the exact amount, but the people currently working there would know that. If you take that same block of money that's subsidizing to provide housing, and you operate out of this thesis that if a person has money, they can rent their own house of their choice, and they can get around several things that are done with Section 8 housing. If any member of your family is convicted of a drug offense, then the whole family can be evicted, and a whole bunch of things like that goes along with, I'm doing you a favor giving you this housing. So if people have money in their pockets to buy their own, and the rent rate drops down to whatever the market will bear.
And you're saying
enterprise.
that the way to put money in people's pockets is to give them a job, create a job for them.
In their pocket is putting money in their pocket in a way that gives them dignity. If they can say, I work for my living and I got a job, it makes all the difference in the world. And if a person has to say, I'm so sad and sorry that I have to be on welfare.
And people immediately are saying, now where does this money come from? Now remember, you're saying pull it out of one department where they are not effective and efficient as they give it away or invest it into these subsidies, but to put it with the labor department.
How the money gets in there.
Right. Well, let me give people a little example of possibly what we're talking about. When the banks told the government that the banks were about to fail because of people like me who maybe were not able to pay my mortgage on time, so the government said, well, we can't have the banks failing because Wallace doesn't pay his mortgage on time, so we're going to step up. Whoa, that made Wallace feel, hey, wait a minute, I'm getting ready to pay my mortgage bill
for you.
But instead, they took and paid the bank, gave the money to the bank, supposedly to represent my debt, and that should have made me feel good, except that the bank still wants the money they say that I owe them, despite the fact that the government has paid them, and I won't even go into the fact that they had an insurance policy that paid my mortgage off whenever I was slow with it. So instead of paying directly into a sponge like the banks or like HUD, you're saying let's go through another source, put the money through a job, and certainly Department of Labor.
What I was going to try to say is that if you subsidize the worker's salary,
yes,
and you add to his salary, take the same money that would have been paid to a landlord to keep his rent up, you pay it to the employer and to the employee through the employer, but it must go to the employee.
Whoa, did you just show us how to create 1 million jobs?
Well, here's how you do that. You take the jobs that are going to China, and you say, or to anywhere, and you say, if you keep that to the employee, if you keep that job here, we will pay part of your employee's salary.
Wow,
it's 50%. That brings their amount up. Your cost will be the same as if you took the job to China, and you can keep it in America, and you circulate that money in America, and they can use it to pay rent. And where do you get the money from to do that? You take it out of the Section 8 and stop subsidizing housing, subsidize employment, keep jobs in America. And I believe that when you want to try something like this, you should try it on a what you call a pilot project.
Oh, I would agree, and I think most people would agree if they were part of that pilot. But if they weren't intended to be part of that pilot, they'd say, "Hey, let's just go for it." Adrian Dove for president. We like that. We like that. Is it too late for him to sign up? It's not too late for you to sign up. I mean, Adrian, that makes, I don't know, it because you've thought about it and lived with it. It may seem a little strange to you, but the immediate impact on my brain was that, whoa, wait a minute. That's jobs. You mean to tell me the same money that we're goofing off and throwing away, if we were to subsidize? Oh no, don't that must be somebody upset in China. My goodness, we're going to subsidize a small business like West Side Story newspaper or Kcaa radio, and subsidize us with that labor money so we can pay people a decent salary, then they can go out and buy their own damn house.
There it is.
Oh my goodness. Adrian Dove for president. It makes all that sense. Jamal, Adrian, we're just going to wallow in that for a moment. Jamal, what do you think of that idea?
I think it makes perfect sense. I would add on to that you can do this by shifting the focus from places like China, where you have price supports and you have all these other issues that are also corporate welfare, taking that money that you use to prop up Pacific Rim business and put it on the other side of the pond over it. Well,
or someplace else. Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying, the other pond, the Atlantic Ocean, in other words, doing transatlantic trade. We're talking about that African Global Economic and Development Summit if you were to utilize the incentives that are there that actually pay America instead of costing America, and there's all kinds of ways to elaborate on that, then those industries on that side of the Atlantic can now foment and foster the production of things that America can't produce for itself cheaper, like fuel. We're talking about biofuel, for instance, that the military needs, that they now have to go out and either destroy the environment with this whole shale thing that they're doing, or they have to import foreign oil and then ship it all inefficiently all around the world to support the military. If they could produce that in a different way, they would reduce their costs. All of that money could then be put into the production and the blending and the distribution of the biofuel here domestically, which would create literally hundreds of thousands of jobs that would be sustainable jobs that wouldn't pollute. Therefore, you don't have the externalities of the pollution now having to be cleaned up.
It's a simple transfer of
you just change the
emphasis.
agenda from something that destroys and creates a constant sponge like you're talking about to something that creates a wellspring.
Mr. Evans, what do you think of this idea?
Well, I have two questions. The first question, I don't need an answer, but just consider this. There are issues with international trade about government subsidy of employment because it gives the company an advantage competitively. Number two, everybody just think about that. I don't know how that would play in with this plan. But number two, draw me the line between the person who is in Section 8 housing and let's just talk about the people that are unemployable. And there's certainly plenty of them out there. Draw me the line between them and how this solves their problem.
Well, let me do this. I would like for Mr. Duff to sit on that pedestal that we placed him on as we continue to work around the bottom and try to show how what he's doing could work. As we put enough people to work, the unemployable, they're usually attached to somebody that is employable. If we create enough jobs, we will go back to that realm of charity, go back to that realm of being able to create something for those people who don't seem to be employable. Their hobbies, the same things that we give them as things to keep them busy, some of those things can actually be creative and turned into money. We have and that's
the rest. What
so
about
I would be so enthused about the movement of the employable unemployed into the realm of employment that I would take that positive step and deal with the positive effects of that and try to move those things over, because once I get that elephant off my foot, I can start working on getting this other little.
Talking about, let me sum this up real quick.
Okay, very quickly.
With all programs, that you need to spend extra money now to get the new program going while you wind down the old program. Doing these things in concert. You found something that's much more cost-effective dollar-wise where you put the money. And now you have to.
Okay, we got to get up out of here. We want to thank you for paying attention. This is Empire Talks Back. We'll be back next week under two circumstances. One, good Lord's willing. And two, the creek don't rise. Adrian Duff, thank you. Adrian Duff for president. Brilliant idea. We'll talk about it more next week.
To win in 4 sets, 7-6, 6-7, 6-4, 6-3, and defeat the 2012 champion. For Novak, it's his 9th career major, and for Federer, he last won Wimbledon in 2012. Both men played great tennis the first couple of sets. There was a short rain delay in the third, and from that point forward, Djokovic was a little sharper. Saturday, it was Serena Williams winning the ladies' final at Wimbledon. Let's go to Major League Baseball. Games in progress right now. Sunday baseball. Final round of games before the All-Star break. In the bottom of the third inning, it's